What is happening out there, Roto Scouts baseball fans? Happy Sunday? Is it happy Sunday? Sunday? It's usually like happy Friday, happy Saturday. Happy Sunday seems a little bit weird, but it is Sunday. Early Sunday morning. 11:30 anyway. Coming up on Sunday afternoon, I guess. A lot of baseball to talk about. Got up fairly early. Woke up tired today. You guys ever wake up tired, like you get the full night's sleep or your normal night's sleep, but you just wake up and it just doesn't feel like it did anything? That's kind of what I was dealing with this morning. So it took a little bit of effort to get out of the old bed this morning, but got all the content up on Roto Scouts. We've got the breakdown. Did the notes format with just some bullet points about each game to speed up the process this morning. Didn't go as deep as normal, but tried to hit all the salient points and leave out some of the art of it, the words of it, the spread of connecting one thought to the other of it, and just give the facts of the matter, just to break things down. But we'll go through everything on the show here. Looks like we've got everybody joining us. Could be Travis, says he's still drunk from Canada Day. Emac said Rich Hill's going to be 25% owned. That seems aggressively high for good old Dick Mountain there. I fully believe that Emac sourced that properly when he wrote that. I'm just not sure that I believe in that projection that was given. But it seems awfully high for a spot that I don't really like. Interesting. We'll talk about it. Fanatics in the chat. We got Larry C in the chat. Larry's alarm goes off every day at 5:25 in the morning. God damn. Fanatics says, daughter was up late watching fireworks, so I thought I could sleep in a little, up at 7:30, 5 a.m. during the week. Yeesh. Yeah, I run a series of alarms. I always have, like, from when I was actually needing to get up and like go and commute into the city and stuff. I would have like a string of like 8 alarms, and my alarm that I use on my phone, everything's through my phone. I use that one that's like in movies, like when a submarine is struck by a torpedo and is sinking, and it's like that loud blaring like kind of horn, that emergency horn. That's my at its loudest possible level, and I'll sleep through it. Like, if I'm home at my parents' house, like, my mother will come in and be like, your phone's been going off for the last like 40 minutes, like 2 feet from your head. It's pretty bad. So I'm not the best at getting up, hearing things. So we need like the one after the other that'll eventually get me there. Mamba's in the chat. Mamba says, I needed you yesterday, man. 10 lineups inside the top, and the damn SP2 killed me again. Oh man, that's brutal. Mama's got that SP2 problem. That sucks. Still, nice performance, though. I mean, it's just a matter of consistently putting lineups that high. And then once you get to that level where you're just consistently dropping lineups into the top, 100, top 1%, however you want to look at it, that's where, to a degree, luck takes over a little bit. That's where, to a degree, you've pushed your chips in, you've got your pocket aces, the other guy's got 7 deuce, you're up to the river card, everything's gone right. It's just a matter of, hey, is he going to spike that card that's going to get him over the top? So at that point, I think you're doing everything right. You're not probably making the wrong decision on your SP2s. You just didn't get there, right? So that's putting lineups in those spots is the most important thing you can do, and then you just kind of let fate take over from there. That's awesome, Mom. I'm glad to hear that things are picking up, and that's what we're here for, man. That's that's what the conversation that we all have in this space is all about. It's not just me, it's everybody, and we've got a ton of good people in the Discord. J187 and Cubs fan are taking people through all sorts of process-based stuff and strategy and how they build lineups and everything. So a lot of good conversation going on. So don't want to take full credit, but I love to hear that, Mama. That's awesome. Hunter Bone, what's going on, bud? Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday. Larry says he was annoyed Friday, had Sevy in his best lineup. Then after yesterday, he was happy with the 0 on Friday. Yeah, I had that weird night on Friday. I got out of most of my Liberator and Sevy shares with that last late swap on FanDuel when they opened it up, but I still had, I went through, I had to get a bunch of Stanton out. I had to get some card shares with like Goldschmidt and Arenado and some other guys out. And by the time FanDuel opened it with like 7 minutes to go before the next game locked, and I was trying to do it all with just, full, swap this guy for whoever. And it just didn't get there. I just didn't get to the bottom few guys, so I was filthy with like a bunch of Glaber shares that were not playing and a bunch of other lineup ruining type things. But I had that one lineup that was in the top like 50 overall on FanDuel with like 260, 270 points and a -9 from Munoz at pitcher. Would have been nice to have gotten a full start in that one. Anyway, let's dive in. This is an interesting slate. Got a lot to talk about. 10 games on FanDuel, 9 games on DK. DK left out the Colorado game, FanDuel included it, but then everybody's going through the 5 o'clock hour now because the Cleveland versus Chicago game, the Guardians and the Cubs, was pushed back to the 5 o'clock hour. So everything's going to be done, and then that game's going to start, and it's going to be a weird one results-wise. So we gotta plow through this thing, and we're going to have to hang on for a long, long time to find out who wins it. But we've got an interesting slate. I think there's a ton of pitching. We'll hopefully find the right SP2s, Mamba. I think we've got a couple good lines on a couple of them. But this one, starting off the top, you could argue that there's a great SP2 option right here. Sandy Alcantara for 7,500, 8,200. Any concerns I have about current form, what he's done this year, the matchup against the Braves, the potential for a pop-up storm in Atlanta, everything is fully alleviated by the fact that Sandy Alcantara is 7,500, 8,200. I think there's just value there. I know that he hasn't been good this year. I know that he hasn't been nearly himself so far this season in 16 starts. Still works fairly deep into ball games. 102 and 2/3 in 16 starts was among the league leaders. 4.82 ERA is atrocious for him. 4.17 xFIP is better, but it's still not what we expect from this pitcher, particularly after last year. 19.3% strikeout rate. Something I like to harp on quite a bit with this pitcher is last year it was still, even with the dominant season that he had, and he was elite last year in everything except for strikeouts. His strikeout rate was only in the low 20s last year. So this is a dip in strikeouts, certainly, but it's not a crazy dip. It's not like he was in the 30s last year. He was at 23.4% last year, down to 19.3. That's a big dip, but it's not like he dropped from 30 plus to that level. He's walking a few more, he's striking out a few less, he's generating more swinging strikes, same amount of strike throwing in general. He's just gotten dinged in a couple of spots. He's lost a couple of hitters where he just hasn't been able to finish them off, and then it's cost him. It's not like he's given up a ton of power. 6.1% barrels, 40.5% on the hard hits. That's up a little bit, but not aggressively so. 1.86% home runs is just right in line with last year. 89.2 miles an hour of exit velo is a little higher than last year. So again, a little bit of happenstance here, and it's typically been a lot of clean innings and one clunker inning that's really burnt him. He's facing the team most likely to do that to a pitcher. With the Braves' power, you can see how he's cutting into the Braves' power in the model. They're not ranking great for home runs, but they are ranking well for projections still. And the Braves are the kind of team that if everything's going wrong for 4 innings, and then all of a sudden they just hit 3 solo home runs in the 5th inning, that's the kind of team that he's facing here. So I don't love the spot, and I don't want to oversell it. You can see he does not project well here. The model knows a lot of this, but not all of it. So, it's not a good spot. The Braves are the worst opponent to face, I think, in all of baseball. But I do think at price, you can play some shares. I don't think it's totally crazy. Last time out, he went 7 against Boston, at Boston. Struck out 5, gave up 1 run, 6 hits, walked 2. 2 terrible starts before that, in which he gave up 5 runs to Toronto, 5 runs to the Nationals. Went 7 in that Toronto game, though. Gave up 5 on 10 hits, walked 2, struck out 6. Goes deep into games, right? In a sport where clean innings count, or a game anyway that we play where clean innings count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. His last 10 starts in a row, he's worked into the 6th inning. Only 2 starts all year, he hasn't worked in the 6th inning. There's upside here. It's tough to see, given what he's done this year, but especially at price, I think there's upside with this pitcher. So I don't think it's totally crazy to use him as an SP2 on DK at 75. I don't think it's totally crazy to use him as a FanDuel pitcher at 82. I think there's enough value there. The guy on the other side of this game is a monster. He's the best pitcher in baseball since he came into the league last year. 52 FanDuel point projection that I just didn't change because it's not pulling anything out of line. The innings might be a little bit high, but he's going up against the Marlins. There's plenty of strikeouts there for him. I left it aggressively high because I think that's right. I think this is a correct projection for Spencer Strider today. 38.9% strikeout rate, 19.7% swinging, 34.9% CSW. All 3 of those marks lead the league by numerous percentage points. 3.47% home runs. He's been a little bit more gettable for power, a little bit more gettable for some, inconsequential premium contact. 3.73 ERA, but a much better 2.92 xFIP. Spencer Strider. The price is high, 12.8, 11.6. You're paying through the nose for him, but it's one of the better matchups going against the Marlins. They've been frisky. The top end is good, with Arraez, Soler, De La Cruz, and Jazz Chisholm. But the bottom of this lineup is fairly weak. There's plenty of upside for Spencer Strider here. So I think you go aggressive about Strider. You roster him just like he's Spencer Strider, like we always have, or at least since he came into the league last year, like we always have. And I think we just take our shots against the Marlins here with Strider. I don't think I need very much Marlins, not even in like a hedge position, a contrarian position. He's just too good. If you want to make, 2 or 3 stacks, I'm sure he's going to be popular today. If you want to make 2 or 3, it's fine. But this is not one of the better pitchers to target with contrarian bats. There's a lot of guys you can do that with. If you're rostering a lot of Sandy, I would definitely grab some Braves bats. Not that that's a direct example of that, because we're not like talking about a premium pitcher who's probably going to be super popular and taking a bad team. We're talking about the best offense in baseball against a struggling former ace. So definite interest in the Braves. Ronald Acuna, Ozzie Albies, Austin Riley, Matt Olson, Travis d'Arnaud. This lineup, again, as usual, plays from 1 through 9. Travis d'Arnaud, definitely not somebody to sleep on at catcher, especially on DK, but I think he's perfectly playable if you're building a bunch of Brave stacks on FanDuel. At 31, you can just build Travis d'Arnaud into those just like any other hitter in this lineup. At 47 on DK, he's got plenty of upside. He's not Sean Murphy at the plate, but he's a good power-hitting catcher. 6 home runs so far this year and only 133 plate appearances. Last year it was 18 in 426 opportunities. Year before it was only 7 in 229. He wasn't a full-time player that year, or he got hurt. I forget which. But regardless, when he gets opportunities, Travis d'Arnaud has not maybe top-level catcher power, but that next tier down. He's a second-tier power-hitting catcher. He's not Sal Perez. He's not Murphy, but he's that next level. So I love going to d'Arnaud, and he'll probably be fairly low-owned by comparison to where Murph would be. So 1 through 9 with Braves. I wouldn't get over the top crazy against Alcantara here. If I see the Braves, probably winning this game, putting a few runs on him in, the most likely outcomes, but probably not torching him. I don't know that we're getting the massive Braves game that we've gotten the last few days. When I see them all cut down like this in the home run model, we lose a little bit of our ceiling here. I'm not saying don't play them. I'm not saying they're not going to go out and knock 4 balls over the wall again and end up scoring 10 runs with the bullpen included here. But for the Sandy part of the game, I certainly don't love it. So I'll have some, but less than the last few days. Only minor head shares of Marlins. Very, very minor. Tons of Strider, and probably some good Alcantara value. Let's see. Yeah, Larry just mentions, and that's a key thing I forgot to mention at the top of the show. Weather is a major issue around the league today. We've got numerous games. I mentioned the Cleveland-Chicago game moved their window to 5 p.m., but we've got weather in this game, which is like kind of the pop-up threats. We've got weather in Philly, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, and Colorado for the FanDuel slate. So it's not a good day weather-wise. It doesn't look like anything is like definitely going to get rained on, definitely going to get postponed. It looks like everything's got good windows, chances to play. If we're looking at Roth's page, he's got a bunch of yellows and oranges on those games. So a lot of opportunity to play. Doesn't seem like anything's dead in the water, but it could be one of those situations where, let's say you go to Abbott on the mound in Cincinnati, who I actually don't really like today. You could get rained on there, and a prized young kid like that comes out of the game, waits 45 minutes. Unlikely that he goes back into the game in that scenario. So I think that's what we're dealing with, a little bit more likely than the postponements. But definitely keep an eye on the weather over the next hour and change as we head toward lock. 1:35 lock, by the way. It's 11:45 now, so we do need to keep a decent pace today. Oh, that reminds me. We got my placeholder lineups in. As I'm saying, we need to keep a decent pace. I think I can do this while I talk this one through. Colin Ray is a target for me on the mound. I know he's had a couple okay starts against lousy teams, but overall, I think Colin Ray's targetable here. 3.46% home runs, 42% hard hits on the season, a 4.57 ERA, a matching 4.57 xFIP. Doesn't strike out too many at 19.7%, walks a few too many at 8.3. There's hard contact available, so I'm throwing some Pirates bats at Colin Ray here, but I don't love this lineup when Brian Reynolds isn't in it. I'm basically focused on like these four guys. And I think that's where anybody who goes to the Pirates is going to go. So it's not like we've got a ton of options in this lineup. They're kind of a mid-range stack for me. Not a high priority. I'll mix and match some of them. I do like the value pricing, so I think you can use them as a price offset with your Braves, your Dodgers, your Padres, and so on and so forth, your Reds. Not that the Reds are expensive. So I think you can use them as a price offset to take shots at Colin Ray here. And you can see McCutch and Suwinski both have major home run marks. Henry Davis, pretty good home run mark at 9.72, but then a lot of it falls off. Carlos Santana, this could be a little higher maybe. He came down with that slow start. Maybe that's a little higher in reality. But it's really about those top four. And then maybe some Josh Palacios bolted on there, but he's never really done much. Tucupita Marcano, Tarolo, Ji-Hwan Bae, Austin Hedges. It's not great in those other spots. So it's really about those core four guys if you're going to Pittsburgh. And then Rich Hill, 62.78. I mean, I guess I get why he's getting a little bit of traction on the DK slate. 25% just seems high, though, to me. 4.45 ERA, 4.48 xFIP, only 20.7% strikeouts, 8.5% walks, 2.84% home runs. He's decent at limiting home runs so far this year, but he's giving up a lot of premium contact. Right? In 89 innings, this could still just be a little bit of happenstance. Like 2 or 3 additional home runs, and this is like a 4. Right? So the percentages of the focus here, the 10.3% barrels, the 40.8% hard hits, 88.9 miles an hour exit velo is okay, but this could be higher given these. So I don't love Rich Hill in this spot. You get the right-handed focused version of the Brewers lineup, and it's not a good Brewers lineup by any means. They don't have Christian Yelich today with the lefty on the hill, giving him a day off on Sunday. So, we're focused on like William Contreras, Willy Adames, Owen Miller, Blake Perkins through the heart of the lineup. It's not good on either side, in my opinion. If I had to pick a winner of that matchup, it probably would be Rich Hill. Somebody said just, who's going to be the more successful side of this equation for DFS. But that doesn't necessarily mean I want to play what I think his score is going to be. I don't think my projection here is all that far off. Low 20s to, maybe pushing a 30 on a deep slate. I don't know that there's enough there, even at price, even at value. He's a lot more appealing at 62 for DK SP2 use than at 78 for FanDuel. I don't think I'll have any shares of him on FanDuel. On DK 6,200, you can definitely use him, but he's probably not my preferred option. We'll look at when we look at the board overall. We'll circle back to that and just compare some of those SP2 prices and see where he falls. But I don't love that spot. No use for Colin Ray even as an SP2 on DK. If somebody wanted to say, hey, he's got a 1 in 5 type strikeout rate, has put up a couple clean games, he's going up against the Pirates, there are good points to be made there. I just don't see it actually coming through and working out. But if you're getting excited about the Rich Hill spot, you can be equally excited about the Colin Ray spot. I think it's not like they're pitching all that differently. Like those numbers basically align from the top guy to the bottom guy there for Colin Ray and Rich Hill. So if you're excited about rostering Hill against the Brewers, the same argument applies for rostering Colin Ray 600 less against the Pirates. It's just neither one looks good to me. So very minor interest in basically anything from this game. I think Rich Hill wins out against this version of the Brewers lineup. There's plenty of strikeouts, 24.9%. You've got to fade through some of these weak-ass righties that he's going to be facing. Like Willy Adames, I guess, is the biggest threat in this lineup right now. He's got a ton of power, but he strikes out 26.3%, doesn't put bat on ball well, doesn't sequence well. It's an ugly lineup. I'm trying to decide if I want to say maybe there's a little bit more there for Rich Hill. Sometimes I hit these points where, like, I would say, like, it's not a great lineup. And I would pause, and then, like, an EMAC or, an Aton or whoever's, hosting the show would jump in with, like, a question or, like, a plug or something. And when I'm doing this myself, I hit those points, and I'm like, shit, is Rich Hill a little bit better maybe here than I'm thinking? Do I want to tell these guys that Rich Hill's a little bit better? I don't think I want to tell you guys that. I really don't. It's there, but especially at ownership, if he's 25%, I think we're just going in other directions. Ugh, God, this is an ugly one. Yeah, I don't like this game very much at all. Minor shares of anything, if anything. That's that one up and down. Ranger Suarez, 8,000 on DK. Great price for Ranger on the DK slate. 98 on FanDuel, perfectly playable. I like the spot here going up against the Nats. I know the Nats are a little bit better against lefties, but Rangers pitching pretty well this year. 23.8% strikeout rate, 3.18 ERA, 3.51 xFIP. Typically keeps the ball in the yard, cuts launch angle, cuts barrels, keeps the ball in the park. 1.43% home runs on 7.6 degrees. This year, 7.6% barrels. Last year, 2.27 on 34.7% hard hits, 6.8% barrels, 5.1 degrees. Similar numbers the year before, only a 0.96 the year before. Some of these innings were out of the pen. He struck out more that year, but he's approaching that level of strikeouts again this year. The CSW's a little bit higher than it was that year. Fewer swinging strikes, but I think overall maybe pitching a little bit better, a little bit more effectively. So I'm kind of interested in Ranger here. I'm not really worried about the Nats. They're being better against lefties amounts to a 16th ranked, 103, I think. 16th ranked or 18th ranked 103 WRC plus collectively. They have a 19.2% strikeout rate in the split and a 149 ISO. If you fade Lane Thomas, if you're Ranger Suarez, you've got a pretty good shot of going around that lineup and getting back to Lane Thomas for at bat number 2 without really taking any damage along the way. So like the spot quite a bit for Suarez. I think you can play Nationals. Certainly Lane Thomas off the top is having a great year. He rakes against lefties. He's having an outrageous year just overall for who he is. So far on the season, 303, 352, 513, 209 ISO, 14 home runs, 7 stolen bases. That's just a good player. He's been really good. Luis Garcia, meh. Joey Meneses, Keibert Ruiz, Stone Garrett, all righties or switch hitters that you can play in this spot against the lefty. And I like all three of those guys better than I like Heimer Candelario, who has been bad against lefties this season. All of his power, all of his output has come against righties this season. So I don't love Candelario. It would be like Lane Thomas, maybe some Luis Garcia, Joey Meneses, Keibert Ruiz, Stone Garrett for me. And then Dom Smith, Derek Hill, CJ Abrams at the bottom of the lineup is just meh. So don't really love the Nats. Definitely want to get to some Phillies. Phils are too cheap on FanDuel, by the way. A lot of value here. Nobody over 4,000. Like, I know Trey Turner's struggled. I know Kyle Schwarber doesn't hit for average, but he's got 22 home runs going up against Trevor Williams. I know Bryce Harper's been, kind of good, but not hitting for power. He's 3,600, still has first base eligibility. Nicky Castellanos just cannot convince these sites to raise his price. 4,300. I think his price has gone down this week since I started talking about that. I think he was 45 earlier in the week on DK. He's 4,300. Dude's hitting 314, 358, 505, 131 WRC plus, 11 homers, 6 stolen bases. What does he have to do? I don't get it. And that's very much who he was back in several years of his career. Just not last year. Weird pricing for Castellanos. Good version of the bottom end with Stott, Bohm, and Brandon Marsh. No Cody Clemens, but you do get Derek Hall in there, who's got big-time power on the left side as well. 2,600 dead minimum on FanDuel as well. Not bad. I didn't actually realize he was back. I like that bat coming back. Derek Hall was like a priority pickup in season-long leagues when Rhys Hoskins originally got hurt. Or he was getting drafted. I forget what the timing was, but he started getting drafted. He's a power bat. That's an interesting spot, especially dead minimum priced on the FanDuel slate. That's kind of interesting in the late part of the lineup. 9 home runs and 142 last year in a part-time role. Not bad. So Phillies for me, 1 through 9, obvious focus 1 through 5, but 1 through 9, very playable here going up against Trevor Williams, who's a non-entity on the mound, 4.57% home runs allowed this year, an 11.5% barrel rate, only strikes out 17.7 over 80 innings, 4.28 ERA, 4.81 on the xFIP. Not a value play for me, not a consideration on the mound on either side for me. I think we throw Phillies bats at Trevor Williams. I think we take some Ranger Suarez shares. Minor interest in the quality, these guys and that guy from the Nats. That's about it. Boston Blue Jays. Interesting matchup here. Let's see what's going on in the chat. Oh, Clemens was sent down, Steve? That makes sense. Bringing Hall back in. Brought to you today by the concept of Batman, if not the logo. This used to be my giant oversized Batman coffee mug, and now it's just like my giant oversized black coffee mug. So I think pitching on both sides in this one is viable. I don't love the matchup against the Blue Jays in Toronto for Garrett Whitlock, but I think he's a talented guy. Doesn't get himself in trouble with walks at 3.3%. Is giving up a little bit of premium contact this year, a little bit of power at 4.25% home runs, 10.2% barrels, 90 miles an hour of exit velo. That's not where we want him to be, but the 3.82 xFIP under the 5.15 ERA is intriguing. The 13.3% swinging strikes and 30.7% CSW is very intriguing and seem very high for a guy only finishing off 21.7% of hitters. So I think his strikeout rates are going to go up as time goes on. He's been a better strikeout pitcher in the past. So I like the spot for Whitlock a little bit because he's only priced at 69, 8, and 8,000. I think he's like a mid-board, take a few shots, wouldn't totally shock me if he had a very good day here type of a play, but he's got to get through the elite Blue Jays lineup and the low strikeout stars at the top of it. You've got high strikeouts in Brandon Belt, Matt Chapman, Dalton Varsho to a degree, but you get very low strikeout rates from Whit Merrifield and Alejandro Kirk down at the bottom, and then you've got to deal with Springer, Bichette, and Guerrero and all their quality, and mid-teen strikeouts from all three of those guys. So it's just not great for Garrett Whitlock. Oh, Reynolds got into the lineup for Pittsburgh. He finally got back, huh? It's a minor bump for them, but taking Davis out kind of sucks. Offsets that a little bit. I would like both of them in the lineup. It's about the same minor uptick in interest for the Pirates with Reynolds back in the lineup. Minor. So yeah, some interest in Whitlock. I don't expect it to succeed, but I think I'll take some shots on it. 8,000 is a good price on FanDuel. He's got the talent, got the depth to pitch to the quality start. Just needs to actually go out and do it. Kevin Gausman is interesting. He doesn't project at the top of my board on a deep day. I mean, we saw Strider up in the 50 range. So we're getting way lower on Gausman, but I actually like the spot a little bit better than the models projecting it here. Gausman's just really, really good. 3.01 ERA, 2.82 xFIP, 32.7% strikeout rate, the highest non-Strider strikeout rate on the board today. 12.9% swinging, 29.6% CSW. Definitely gives up some power in terms of the barrels. It hasn't really translated into home runs, but 45% hard hits, 10.1% barrels. That's aggressively high. 90 miles an hour of exit velo. So his barrels, his hard hits, his exit velo all looks a lot like Garrett Whitlock on the other side. He's just had a little bit of happenstance on his side in only allowing 2.12% home runs. So maybe a little bit of sneaky upside for the Red Sox bats. You get to the lefty-oriented version with Jarren Duran, Alex Verdugo, Rafi Devers off the top there. Tristan Casas is nice in the 6th spot, but they've got fucking Rob Refsnyder in the lineup today, which I didn't know when I started talking about this, instead of Adam Duvall, which is a major downgrade. Their fascination with Rob Refsnyder is amazing to me. I don't know why they hit him so high in the lineup. Not that they've got really other choices in this version of the lineup, but damn, that's a weak point. I'd so much rather have Duvall there. So yeah, it's really top 4 plus 6 for me with these Red Sox. You can work Refsnyder in at cheap prices if you want him. Slap hitting journeyman type guy. Yoshida's out. I didn't have Yoshida in the projected, but I had Duvall in that spot in the projected. But yeah, no Yoshida is a big downgrade to this lineup as well. But I do like that top 4 is good and productive. But yeah, that feeds upside for Gausman with not having to get through Duvall. You should not play Refsnyder versus already. Yeah, exactly. I really love more Hicks, Refsnyder, or Profar. 2 of those guys are former Yankees. So yeah, downgrade to the Sox stack in general. Top 4 is in play. The lefties plus Justin Turner plus Casas. But yeah, don't love the spot now for the Red Sox. Minor uptick for Kevin Gausman. Maybe that would push him above 30 in my mind. But like I was saying, I think he's a little bit better than what this projection is showing. You're just paying a lot for him. 11,000, 11,200. Not a pitcher's park in Toronto, but he certainly knows how to pitch there. Not the greatest matchup against the Red Sox, but there's upside against this version of the Red Sox. On the other side, Blue Jays, I think you can definitely roster some Blue Jays against Garrett Whitlock. I like him as a value play on the mound, but we're talking about a very, very good lineup here with George Springer, Bo Bichette, Vladdy Guerrero. Brandon Belt remains cheap in the 3 spot there. I know he hasn't hit for a ton of power, but he's still correlating with those guys. He's still getting on base, still an 11.2% barrel rate, 42.9% hard hits, slots into first base and the outfield for 3,000 on DK. Creating runs 18% better than average. Only has 4 home runs, a 156 ISO. Maybe he's not the high 20s, 30 home run Brandon Belt from years past. But if he's hitting third for those prices and getting involved with these key hitters, I think you definitely want him in stacks. Matt Chapman, Dalton Varsho, Whit Merrifield, quality bats up and down for Toronto. I'd probably cut it off around the Kirk Kiermaier level, but Varsho, definite power upside. Kirk has power at catcher on the DK slate where you need him. Even Kiermaier as like a mix and match, last man in 1 or 2 times. I think it's fine. Could be Travis says, would your 3-man Red Sox on DK or limit it to one-offs? On a slate like this, I'd probably prefer 3-mans rather than just going just one-offs. But I think if you're one-offing like Devers or Verdugo, you're perfectly fine there. Maybe some Casas for really cheap if you need it. Those would be the 3 guys that I would want a one-off. And really, it's primarily around the home run hitters. So it's really more around Devers and Casas, depending on what you have to spend, if I'm just looking for a one-off. But I would be more inclined to grab 2 and then a one-off, like a mini stack and a one-off from another team, or just take 3. It's just once we get to 3, we're getting to, do I want that third man to be Duran, who's flawed at the top but hits lefty, Turner, who hits righty and is in a tough matchup against the same-handed pitcher but is a super professional hitter over time. It gets dicey on that third option. But I'm generally more inclined to keep hitters together and look for the rising tide of productivity. So, little bit of interest in both pitchers for sure. More interest in Gaussman as the potential ace. I'll probably have more Gaussman than this relative score might suggest at price. I think I'm going to have to put my thumb on the scale a little bit to get there, but I think I'm going to. And then Whitlock value is definitely in play, but not in a great situation. Things that are in a great situation. Reds hitters, Padres hitters. Neither of these pitchers. Pedro Avila doesn't have a projection on the FanDuel slate because he's not on there. He's 4,000 on DK. He is a non-option. Not pitching in this ballpark. Not pitching the way he is or who he is. He's a 26-year-old. He's filling in for Yu Darvish because Yu Darvish is sick. He has made 13 starts in AAA this year, 46 and 2/3 innings as a 26-year-old in AAA. He has a 6.55 xFIP and an 8.49 ERA, and he's struck out 18.1%, walked 11.9%, and allowed a 4.84% home run rate in AAA. Target this pitcher with Reds bats. I think this is a great spot to roster Reds. Assuming no rain, that's the one flaw here. But Ellie De La Cruz was my home run pick for the day. Matt McClain is a star. 317, 372, 556, a 239 ISO, 7 home runs, 4 stolen bases on 196 plate appearances. I'm sorry. Matt McClain is an absolute star who should be higher priced than 4,600 on DK after that production. He's a highly regarded kid. He was raking all year in the minors before the call-up and just has not slowed down at this level. So McClain's a bargain at 46, appropriately priced at 4,000 on the FanDuel slate. Up and down, I like this lineup, though. Fraley, Votto, and Steer all over the magic number for home run upside. All of those guys are relatively cheap to affordable on both sites. I like TJ Friedl in the leadoff spot as a lefty. A good amount of power there, some stolen base upside, good hit tool. Jonathan India hitting third from the right side of the plate, 4,500, 3,300. That's cheap for Jonathan India's talents on DK. Good second baseman, 11 home runs, 12 stolen bases in 367 plate appearances. Probably, outside of Joey Votto, the most established player on this team, the guy that we've had the longest track record and some success with. So I wouldn't leave India out by any means, but Friedl, McClain, India, Ellie, Fraley, Votto, Steer, 1 through 7 for sure, with enthusiasm for the Reds here. And then Benson and Malley, you bolt on in small doses, minor shares. And there's not a lack of upside there. Like Benson, 112 plate appearances, 299, 393, 474. Creating runs 32% better than average in the small sample. 3 homers, 6 stolen bases. Malley is a cheap catcher. 3 homers, stolen base in 91. It's not bad. Padres are obvious, assuming that we get basically this version of the lineup. Let me see if it's in. It is in. It looks, I think, just like this. So you're taking the stars from the Padres. You've got 4 stars at a variety of prices, but they're Fernando Tatis, Juan Soto, Manny Machado, and Xander Bogaerts. Obvious plays there. Even with struggles, you're just taking these guys with Bogaerts and Machado. Machado, 11 home runs and 92 WRC+. Bogaerts still above the waterline for run creation at 104 WRC+, despite only slashing 255, 339, 383 with 8 home runs. They're just cheap for who they are, those two players. These two players are... Actually, Juan Soto is pretty cheap for who he is. 5,436. That's just wrong. Fernando Tatis is priced appropriately. But yeah, these 3 guys are all cheap. Gary's in the lineup. He's cheap. Ha-Seong Kim is a productive enough guy when he's leading off. 9 homers, 13 stolen bases, a 111 WRC+. Just buy some of the correlation with the star caliber players that follow him. Multi-position on FanDuel at second and third. Not that you're going to really replace Manny Machado with him, but at least it's there. Bottom of the lineup, Cronenworth, underperforming this year, but has been productive in the past. Nelson, in a former life, was the most fearsome hitter against left-handed pitching that you've ever heard of, so you can definitely throw a couple Nelson shares into the mix. I don't love Trent Grisham, lefty at the bottom of the lineup, but tons and tons of upside for the Pods here. Andrew Abbott. I think people are going to go here, and I don't really like it. 92 on DK, 10-4 on FanDuel, just way too pricey on FanDuel. He doesn't really project well for me. I know he's pitched well, but he's pitching in Cincinnati on a warm weather day against this Padres lineup, and he hasn't been as good as it seems like he's maybe been. The 1.21 ERA is really deceptive with this pitcher. The .94 whip is pretty deceptive. A 4.77 xFIP is pretty telling about who he probably really is. 26.1% strikeouts, but 10.4% walks. A .94 whip doesn't go with a 10.4% walk rate. I would guess he's got a spectacularly low batting average on balls in play right now, which is, small sample. These things happen. But I just think he's not as crazy elite as people might be thinking. Yeah, 186 batting average on balls in play right now. That's why that whip is so low. This xFIP is a lot more telling about who this pitcher really is, and you can see evidence of it in this. 8.2% barrels, 42.5% hard hits, 91.1 miles an hour of exit velo on a 25-degree angle. That's home run trajectory, my friends. That's home run power. He's only allowed 2.61% in the small sample, but I expect he's going to get dinged here and start pitching a lot worse and really surprise people. Might not happen today. Might go out and put up another gem. It has been striking hitters out, has been pitching clean games. But I don't love it, especially with the idea that he might come out of the game if it starts to rain and not make his way back in at these prices. If he was cheaper, you could play it. But for me, I'm going to leave Abbott on the table for the public today. I'm not sure what his ownership looks like. If it's aggressively low, then maybe you grab a few shares, but I don't really like this spot. Talented kid, but I don't think it's all fully there yet. I think there's evidence of that in the numbers, and it's a brutally bad matchup. Anybody really excited about the Abbott play today? 3% projected ownership. Okay, so maybe they're not going to be as aggressive as I thought. So I don't think that really leads me to rostering Abbott shares. Like, everything I said about the pitcher still holds up. I think it's a little bit better if you want to go down that road. Like, if you were dead set on playing Abbott shares today, A, don't let me talk you out of it, and B, or at least consider what I'm saying, and B, maybe you do make that play then if he's going to be that low owned. That would be a supporting piece for that play, but I just don't love it. With Cincinnati pop-up storms around 345, 4-ish, so maybe they get it in. Should be able to get it in at that time. Fanatic sees the Reds winning a World Series in the next 3 years if they play their cards right. They've certainly got the talent at the plate. They need to get better at on the mound, but they've got some pieces coming. Oh, is it Morreon starting? Is that an opener situation for the Pods? It changed up on me. I'm just pulling this up real quick. I would expect we're still seeing the other kid at some point. This one's saying 3 to 4 innings. I love when sites write notes like this. Considering he hasn't recorded more than 7 outs in any of his appearances in the majors or minors this season, Morejon won't likely be asked to cover more than 3 to 4 innings. That doesn't jibe. 2 innings. Like 2 to 3 innings, maybe. 3 to 4 is a stretch. I think we see a little bit of Morejon, and then we probably run into this other guy. I don't think that changes anything about the read here. Maybe a little bit of a downturn in terms of... Doesn't really seem to impact it. Oh, I think I have to change it on the back end for these numbers to change. But at least we can look at them. 4 innings in the show this year, 25% strikeouts, allowing plenty of power. 23.1% barrel rate, anybody? 46.2% hard hits, 92.3 miles an hour exit velo. It's unfair to talk about because it's 4 innings. Only a couple of hitters. Last year, 34 innings, 19% strikeouts or 20% strikeouts. Moderate amount of power. Year before, plenty of barrels in a small sample again. Not intimidated by Morejon, certainly. I think he feeds right into the Reds as well. I'm not really worried about that spot. Good note, though. I appreciate anytime something like that changes, definitely let me know, guys, because there's only one of me. And I unfortunately don't have the news guide helping me out. You guys got to start haranguing the news guide about jumping ship coming over here. Tampa Bay beat reporter is the best for that stuff with openers and long guys. I'll check that out, Lar. I'm not sure if I'm aware of which Tampa Bay beat reporter we're talking about, but that's interesting. Hunter Bone asks, Terry, am I hiring? Right now, I'm just me. But one day, we'll see. I have no real idea where this is headed. But yeah, I'm going to need some help once basketball and football get here. So hiring might be a strong word, but potentially looking for help could be a better way to phrase that. Hiring implies there's a salary involved. All right, let's keep on rolling here. Dodgers and the Royals. Major spot for upside for the Dodgers. I didn't skip a game, right? Yeah. Major spot for upside for the Dodgers. Boy, it's 12-15. Obvious names up top. Looks like a good version of the Dodgers lineup from 1 through 4. Peralta hitting 5th. Who's missing? No Will Smith today. You get Austin Barnes instead of Will Smith. But 1 through 4, still obvious superstardom. Tons and tons of power. David Peralta, Jason Hayward, Miguel Vargas, James Outman. All those guys are playable from 5 through 8 in that lineup. They're going up against Brady Singer, who has just been a problem this year. 92.4 miles an hour of exit velo, a 53.6% hard hit rate. Only 2.7% home runs somehow. Despite this, so like this doesn't, you put this together, this doesn't add up to that. So he's gotten a little bit lucky to only have given up 2.7% home runs in my mind here. 4.47 on the xFIP, 5.88 ERA, only striking out 18.9%. I've said it before. It was a kid I was expecting to take steps forward, not big steps backward this year. But he's gone backward. He's completely regressed. I think you can target him on the mound. I don't really think I want to go here. 5,000 is a good price for what he used to be on DK. But brutally bad matchup against the Dodgers. Like, you're not trying to squeeze a good start out against the Dodgers here. If it was this guy, he wouldn't be priced at 5,000 against the Dodgers. But if he was this guy, I could maybe make a stronger argument for throwing him at the Dodgers at that price. But he's just not been this guy at all this year. It's really, really thin. Even at 5,000, it's difficult to go to Brady Singer against the Dodgers here. So I think you load up on Dodgers shares. Play it like they were totaled at like 5.8 implied runs or something along those lines. So just a sick total in that looks like a Coors Field total almost. So load up on Dodgers bats. Don't really need Brady Singer. And then Tony Gonsolin on the other side, pulling a nice little projection. Only 19.4% strikeout rate. Hasn't been great in terms of the xFIP at 5.03, but the 3.30 ERA is playable. Only 57 and a third in 11 starts. Hasn't really been giving up many home runs or getting himself in trouble putting guys on base, which is typically how he goes about his business. Struck out more in years past. 27.2% 2 years ago and 55 and 2/3. 23.9% in 24 starts last year. has been a little bit better in years past, but not pitching poorly this season. And going up against the free-swinging, high strikeout Royals that have been feeding big scores to worse pitchers, I think I can take some shots with Gonsolin here at 86, 88. Seems like an interesting spot to me. Michael Garcia, Bobby Witt, Sal Perez, Nick Pratto, MJ. Those are your Royals bets that you go to if you want to take shots against Gonsolin, which I don't think is entirely off the table. He can certainly get beat up here a little bit, but they haven't been producing very much at all. Not much in terms of home runs. Only 2 guys above average for run creation in the entire lineup, and they're not the 2 that you would expect. Nick Pratto and Freddie Fermin, the only 2 guys above average for run creation this year. So not Bobby Witt, not Sal Perez. That's a little strange. But yeah, Witt and Perez are your 2 threats in that lineup right now. Pratto's got a good bat on the left side of the plate, but strikes out 36.4% of the time. MJ strikes out 30%. Drew Waters 36%. There's a lot of support for the upside for Tony Gonsolin here. So only very tepid interest in the key bats from the Royals, like these 3 guys, maybe some MJ. Tons and tons of interest in Dodgers up and down. Tony Gonsolin for sure. No interest in Singer. If I was building 150 on DK, would I put a couple of Singer 5,000s in there? I don't think so. I really don't think I would. I think we need to see it. Not against the Dodgers. A weaker opponent, sure, but not against the Dodgers. Yanks and the Cards. Revenge narrative for Jordan Montgomery for the narrative chasers. Now, when we talk about narratives, I'm firmly on the record for not chasing narratives, not believing in narratives. But if you want to talk about people who have things in their control versus guys who don't, a pitcher certainly has things more in his control than hitters do. So, like, I wouldn't say yesterday, like, Harrison Bader is in the lineup. He's, used to play for the Cards. Fire away with Harrison Bader. But with the idea that Montgomery has control over the situation, still no. Not for me. Yeah, I don't chase narratives. I just think Montgomery's a good pitcher. 36.2 in the model here is giving a good projection against this weak version of the Yankees lineup. If Jordan Montgomery succeeds, it's not because he hates New York. But my point was, there is just, if you are chasing narratives, do it with things that can be controlled. Do it with an NBA point guard because he's got the ball in his hands all the time. He actually decides what happens. You don't do it in the NBA with a center who needs the point guard to feed him the ball. That's just kind of how I approach things that are narratives. But that is not a way to look at this. I was just being a little silly there. Larry says, "Allured to the narratives." Yeah, exactly. 7, 8, 9 hitters on the Royals, even real major leaguers. Yeah, they're just creative players from MLB The Show, Trev. Trey is in the chat. Trey, what's going on, bud? A little late arrival? Or just not hadn't chimed in? By the way, hit the like button out there. Hit the subscribe if you haven't already. And congrats to Nariki, who had a nice little, dropped a little screenshot of a $3,000 winner. I think it was in one of the higher dollar entry tournaments, but a nice little 5th place finish. $3,000 winner on, I think it was Friday night. Then we had another screenshot in here that I thought was from Trey. Lone Wolf DFS had a nice little pop. Maybe that was the one I was thinking of. Yeah, got Lone Wolf DFS had a little $200 winner over on a DK slate. So those were the ones I was thinking of. Congrats to those guys. Love seeing the screenshots, gang. Don't care if my logo's on them. I just like seeing them. Makes me feel great when I'm not doing well on my night, and just love seeing you guys do well, whether it's with my advice or with somebody else's. I just like seeing you guys do well. So share those screenshots. But yeah, getting back to this one. So I think Montgomery is at 7,800. Great value on DK. 93. I'm playing him for sure, fairly aggressively, I think, on the FanDuel slate here. So I'm gonna have quite a bit of Jordan Montgomery going up against this lousy version of the Yanks. DJ, Glaber, Rizzo, Stanton, Bader are your playable Yankees. Josh Donaldson, if you want to put either a 0 or a home run into your lineup with Josh Donaldson. Bottom 3 guys I don't really need too much from the Yanks. Volpe's coming on a little bit. 220, 295, 386 now, 166 ISO, 10% worse than average creating runs, 10 homers, 16 stolen bases. The counting stats have been there. I mean, this was 15 stolen bases for like all of May and June, and he finally got one more, but he doesn't get on enough. This was 9 home runs, and he finally hit one more. So Volpe hasn't been great, but at least he's hitting a little bit more in terms of like hit tool hitting, singles and doubles and stuff. That's what I want from him. Just get on base, kid. Don't worry about selling out for power. Don't worry about trying to win ball games with one swing. Just get on base. Everything comes together if that kid starts getting on base. Anyway, minor interest in Yankees. I'll have some. They're a good value play. They're very, very cheap. So guys like Stanton, who still projects well with all his power, comes through as a strong value play. Guys like Rizzo, guys like Torres come through as strong value plays. More so on FanDuel for Glaber. Glaber's 4,900 for some reason on the DK slate. Not that that's like a relatively high price on DK, but he probably shouldn't be 500 more expensive than Giancarlo Stanton. Glaber's a good second baseman, but he's not Giancarlo Stanton. On the other side, Cards against Garrett Cole. This is an interesting inflection point for the slate. 11-2, 10-6. Cole hasn't been nearly as bad as people think he has. 26.8% strikeouts is definitely down a few percentage points from last year when he was 30 plus. 7.3% walks is up a little bit. 3.80 xFIP is not great. It's not Garrett Cole like, but it's not 4 plus. 2.78 ERA is quite good. 2.37% home runs. For Garrett Cole, that's actually a pretty good mark. He hasn't given up those weird home runs as frequently this year. It's just a couple bad spots for Cole that he's gotten into some trouble. But I think he's still very, very viable here. Very good. I just don't like the matchup against the Cards. I like getting into this Cards lineup quite a bit, especially when they're this cheap. 3,700, 2,800 for Lars Nootbaar leading off as a lefty there. I really like just that top four. The lefty-righty of it with Nootbaar, Goldschmidt, Gorman, and Arenado. There's tons of power available there. It's a really good just combination of hitters. Gorman hit his 16th last night, maybe getting a little bit back on form after a super cold May and June. Goldschmidt has 15. Arenado's got 16. Nootbaar's got a ton of power and speed in the top spot there. And then like Wilson Contreras, Jordan Walker, DeYoung, Carlson, Edman, you bolt those guys on if you're going over the top with card stacks. I just don't really want to go over the top with card stacks against Garrett Cole. That's the problem there. So this one's a little bit more leaning toward pitching for me. Oddly, against two productive, good, hard-hitting teams. I think I'm a little bit more interested in Monty, a little bit more interested in Cole. I'll have a good amount of both of those guys on both sites. And then you string in some, mid-range, mid-level priority, lower mid-level priority Yankees and Cardinals stacks here. Definitely good names on both sides in terms of the hitters, all at good prices. So they're probably going to come up a fair amount in like optimizer runs and stuff. But not a great situation for hitting for either of these teams. So that's a pitching game for me. Astros and the Rangers. Andrew Heaney. 7,200 on DK, 8,600 on FanDuel. I could take some shots with Andrew Heaney here. Going up against the Astros, 24.2% strikeouts, down from the 30+% that he worked at last year in a small sample. Roughly equivalent to where he was a couple years ago. I think it was like 26 and change. Walking a few too many this year. Always is bad at giving up the odd home runs here and there. A couple of home runs a game is typically what Andrew Heaney does. On the days he doesn't give up those home runs, he's typically putting up a really strong start at a good price. He's got significant strikeout upside. The Astros have underperformed all season. They still don't have Jordan Alvarez in the lineup. So I think some shots with Heaney is totally justified at the price. He projects okay. He's not the top projected guy, but he's certainly not the bottom, like upper mid type projection. The strikeouts are, like I said, down a little bit, but 24.2 is still pretty good. So I think for price, you can take some shots with Heaney. Sean Dubin on the other side, multi-inning expectation, 3-4 inning type of opener situation before getting into the bullpen, I believe. 32% strikeouts in 5 innings, but all this power, all this premium contact. I think I'm going to side with the Rangers over this kid and the Astros bullpen here. 62.5% hard hits, 96.4 miles an hour of exit velocity. It's a small sample. It's 5 innings. It's as unfair as it was to talk about Morejon's. But this is going up against the Rangers. Maybe he goes out and has a clean couple innings, takes the top off this lineup once through the order before they hand off to the rest of the pen. But come on. This is the Rangers. Definite interest in Rangers bats. Semien, Seager. Seager finally pulling away from Semien in the home run model. These guys were running like next to each other. Identical numbers or neck and neck, and Semien's pulled away a little bit. Might be matchup based. I'm not sure what drove the differentiator there, but he's having a great year. 10 home runs, 255 ISO. Semien's dipped a little bit in power output, so probably some of that coming through. The barrel rate's down for Semien. The hard hits are down a little bit, but he's been a good power hitter over time without having massive barrel rates, massive hard hit rates. So still love Semien, Seager. Nathaniel Lowe still very cheap at first base. Correlates well with all these guys. Good stick, good hit tool, moderate amount of power. Don't really get why he's quite so cheap in the heart of a very productive lineup. I guess just so that you can actually play these guys in combination with one another, they got to put somebody cheap. Adolis Garcia is a star, 20 home runs, 246 ISO. Josh Young, Jonah Heim, Ezekiel Duran, Leo de Taveras. We talk about this lineup being playable 1 through 9 quite a bit. With Josh Smith in the bottom of the lineup, maybe it's 1 through 8 today. Smith, not the greatest player in the world, 219, 354, 343, 105 WRC+. Plus. Has been involved in his 128 plate appearances, but just not great. But at least he's very, very cheap with multi-position. So there's a path to getting some Smith in your lineups. But some enthusiasm for sure about the Ranger spot here in a bullpen game for the Astros. And some Heaney. If you want to take some shots with Astros, you certainly go to Altuve, Bregman, Tucker, maybe some Abreu, and then like Chas McCormick down the bottom of the lineup. Those are my favorite Astros today. If you're going over the top with them, you of course want to build in some Abreu, some Jainer Diaz, some Jeremy Pena. But I don't think it's a great spot. I think it's a spot where if they get him, they might get him for 2 home runs, 5 runs total, and not go off. So like Heaney doesn't succeed, but the Astros also don't succeed kind of a day. That's just kind of where I see Heaney failing to. And I see a path to success for him. Couple of games to go. This one's not on the DK slate. Let me skip this and go to the Guards and Cubs, and then we'll come back for the FanDuel wrap up at Coors Field. Hunter Bone says Texas bats always look good. They certainly do. Larry says Texas bats look good, so Hunter was replying to that. Yeah, they always look good. That is an excellent spot. Donaldson, the ace pitcher now? I don't know what you're... Did Donaldson pitch? Did he get into a game as a pitcher? Josh Donaldson? Is that who we're talking about? Did he come into a game as a pitcher and I missed it? St. Louis and New York, both in bottom 5 of implied totals. Makes sense. Trav, that was a projected Astros. I'll grab the confirmed. So no Pena in the confirmed. Mauricio Dubon hitting 5th again. So minor downgrade to the Astros. Not that Pena's been good this year. But Dubon's also not good. So this is the confirmed Astros. So it's 1, 2, 3, and 8 as my preferred guys. If I'm building a lot, you can certainly build in Abreu, Dubon, Jainer Diaz, who's been productive this year. If I'm on DK, it's 1 through 3 plus probably Diaz and maybe McCormick. On FanDuel, it's really just like these 3 guys and then anybody. If I'm on FanDuel, I would probably, my first Astros stack would probably be McCormick and then these 3. Just do a little wraparound play there. That would be my first Astros stack that I built, and then before I get into these guys on FanDuel. I think these guys have a little bit more upside on DK where you need catchers and so on. I was going to skip this. So, Guards and Cubbies. Jameson Taillon. Oh, God. Another ugly spot. 52 hundo. Jameson Taillon. Which way is the wind blowing in Chicago? The wind's blowing in. On a stormy, ugly day in Chicago. 71 degrees, rainy. That feeds the beast a little bit for Taillon. It's not great. The weather doesn't come through in the model here. So give him a little bit of a nudge up for the weather, the wind blowing in. I think Taillon is a viable DK play for sure. 5,200. He's talented enough at that price. He hasn't been good this year. 1 in 5 strikeouts, 4.93 xFIP, 6.90 ERA. 9.1% swinging is okay for a Jameson Taillon type. 24.4% CSW isn't that great for anybody. He's been bad for power. 11.8% barrels. 4.60% home runs. But we're going up against the Guardians, who don't hit home runs, who don't get on base, who don't create runs. The wind's blowing in. Damn it. I didn't want to endorse Taillon here. I wasn't planning on it coming into this matchup, but then the weather bug tickled my brain there and the price. It's a DK play. I don't know that I make the play on FanDuel. 62, you can probably get away with it in a few shares. You certainly need to drill your bats. but that buys you 2 good bats. That gives you 4,000 to work with over the Garrett Coles of the world, or a little bit more. I think he's in play, as uncomfortable as that is. Got to make some uncomfortable pitching plays these days in DFS. So I think Taillon's in play reluctantly with low expectations of success. I gotta throw that in there. This is a risk tolerance type play, but he's on the board, as bad as he's been. And we have had good success with Taillon in the past. He's been a good pitcher in years past. Last year, 20.7% strikeouts is pretty much in line with this year's production, but a much better xFIP, much better ERA. 23.2% strikeouts the year before. Believe that was with the Yanks. 4.30 ERA, 4 plus xFIP, 4.6 something xFIP as I scroll away from it there. So a very flawed pitcher at the right price in a good matchup with the wind blowing in and all those factors. He's in play. As reluctant as I am to say that. Savali on the other side is more enthusiastically in play. I actually believe that Aaron Savali is a pretty good pitcher. 3.18 ERA, 4.51 xFIP is worse. Pretty good at limiting power. 2.41% home runs, only 5.1% barrels. Small sample, 7 starts, 39 and 2/3. Striking out 1 in 5, walking a few too many. Struck out more last year, 97 innings, 24.1. Year before was right about where he is this year, but walked fewer. Walked fewer last year as well. So I think we got a little bit of happenstance in the walks, the ugly xFIP, a little bit of happenstance probably in the whip there. I like Savali. Same environmental factors as far as the wind and everything adds to his projection, which was already a little bit higher. The Cubs are the better of these two lineups, but they've been up and down. They haven't hit for any kind of power this year. This projected lineup has nobody over 10 home runs right now. Bellinger would probably have gotten there if he hadn't missed all the time that he did. But it's not a great Cubs lineup. So I see some upside for Savali here. We'll see what happens with the weather. We'll see what happens with the lineups that come out against these guys. But yeah, oddly, this Wrigley game has 2 pitchers. And I think they're both in play for our purposes here. Just price-based, opportunity-based, 2 bad lineups. Wind blowing in, bad weather day in Chicago. I think you can get away with both of these guys, or one or the other of these guys. Taillon the better value. Savali your better FanDuel play, I think. More upside for a quality start from Savali. Lineups-wise, I would take some shots probably with the Cubs, but it's not a great hitting situation, so very, very minor interest in Cubs bats. And then the Guardians bats, I just haven't really been going to all that often. And in this spot, with a lot of justification for why you wouldn't want to go to bats in this game, I think it just supports not going there. Maybe they sequence, maybe they put 10 runs on Taillon without hitting a home run. It's certainly possible, but they haven't been doing that all season long. Jose Ramirez, Josh Naylor are your focus hitters, and then you're bolting on shares of like Steven Kwan, Ahmed Rosario, Josh Bell, Andres Jimenez. Bottom 3 hitters in that lineup are not productive DFS guys. Don't really need shares of Brennan Straw. Bo Naylor, actually, I shouldn't have lumped in there. He hasn't been productive yet, but he is a power hitting catcher, prospect anyway. 1 home run in his 40 plate appearances. So Brennan and Straw are the guys I was referring to there as kind of, especially Straw, kind of a non-entity for DFS. On the Cubs side, Ian Happ, Seiya Suzuki, Cody Bellinger, Dansby Swanson. These are my 4 guys that I want, and then the rest of these guys are all mix and match type plays. But again, with wind and all the environmental factors going up against a pitcher that I think is at least an effective major league pitcher, if not a good one, I don't need to get too many Cubs. So that wraps up the DK slate. And then we've got Coors Field. Obviously, we want to roster just tons and tons of Matt Manning and Connor Siebold, right, King? That is not the case. Nobody do that. If those were the last thing you heard me say on this show, I apologize. That was a joke. You do not want Siebold. You do not want Matt Manning. Fire away with bats. Both of these teams are pulling over a 6 total. It was a pick'em game in Vegas last I saw. 2 terrible lineups going up against each other with bad pitching on the mound. I think this is a spot where the bad hitting is going to beat the bad pitching because it's Coors Field. I don't see either one of these guys putting up the Austin Gomber game that we talked about the other day. I don't see the reason to take any shots with these guys. They're not on the DK slate. No reason to take shots with these guys on FanDuel. Ugly lineups. If I'm going to Tigers, it's McKinstry, Spencer, Carpenter, and then mix and match my way. Veerling probably is in play. He's gotten most of his production, oddly, in against righties this year. Same-handed matchups. I don't really need Miggy, Jake Rogers all that much, Zach Short all that much. Rogers at least has power as a catcher, but it's a FanDuel only game, so you don't really need a 8 hitting catcher. He's got 10 home runs and 168 though, so you give him credit for that anyway. But Kerry Carpenter is interesting. Big number in the home run model. Rogers over the home run mark. Javi Baez, reluctant interest, just because he's probably in the lineup. It's Torkelson. So really, Torkelson and Carpenter are the two focus guys here for me. And then everybody else kind of plays as a bolt-on. But obviously, more love for the guys higher in the order, and then the guys who at least have done it in the past or are pulling good marks here, like Javi Baez. Rockies side, probably like this lineup a little bit better than the Tigers side, especially with Chris Bryant back in, assuming that he plays. So Bryant, McMahon, Elias Diaz, CJ Cron, Nolan Jones. That's a good little 5-man. Coors Field game. Really like Nolan Jones as a hitter. Left side of the plate going up against Matt Manning. Surprised we're not seeing more upside in the home run model here for the Rockies, actually. Manning in 3 starts has been filthy for power allowed, 5.56% home runs, 52.8% hard hits. Very small sample, obviously, but it's not like he's been a elite pitcher over time by any means. I guess was effective enough limiting home runs these last couple of years, limiting barrels, hard hits. So this is why it's a little low in the home run model. These past seasons of minor quality, but definite opportunity to roster Rockies bats on the FanDuel slate. So it's the guys through the heart here. I would include Tovar on that list before I included Profar. He should hit here. He should be off the team. Harold Castro's playable at the bottom of the lineup for cheap. He's 3-position eligible at 2,600 on FanDuel. So he makes a lot of things work at the very least. You don't like the spot in the lineup. He's a slap hitter of an option, but he plays 3 positions for 2,600. So in a Coors Field game. So I think he's at least valuable for that. Brenton Doyle, minor counting stats upside. So that's it. All bats in the Colorado game, kind of obviously. Let's take a look at this pitching board. I promised we would try and find some SP2s. Make sure we're properly sorted. So ignore Avila up at the top there. Strider, the obvious. Just mash the Strider button anytime he's on a slate, and you're probably not that bad to start. You're just spending a lot on him. Big price tag on DK. You need a cheap pitcher to go with him on DK. So who do we like? I like Jordan Montgomery at 78. That's an effective value play, but it's not one of these super discounts. I think Taillon's the guy for the super discount. I'd rather go to Taillon. If I'm looking at the below 6 tier, it's Taillon, 5,200. I like it better than I like Rich Hill going up against Milwaukee at 62. I know I said below 6, but we'll count 62. I think I like the Taillon spot a little bit better than I like the Rich Hill spot. It's not like they're pitching all that differently, and Taillon's in the better matchup, in the better pitching conditions. Singer, no trust at all, no faith whatsoever at 5,000 against the Dodgers. Colin Ray, 56. You can make an argument that there's upside for Colin Ray against the Pirates there. It's not great, but I think that's at least minorly playable. A couple of shares of that, a couple of shares of Taillon. Whitlock at 69 is a good value price. Heaney at 72, but now we're climbing that ladder again. That makes it difficult to get to Strider plus bats. So yeah, if you're going to Strider, you're going to have to play with some of these Taillon shares, maybe some of the Colin Ray shares. It's not pretty. Definitely some Rich Hill. So like, if I was ranking it, I'd probably go Taillon and Hill very close to one another, but that $1,000 of price puts Taillon ahead. Taillon, then Hill, then Ray, probably for me. In terms of the value guys, none of them project well. Like, we're looking at the bottom of the pitching board here, obviously. If we've got a little bit more to spend, I like Ranger Suarez quite a bit more. I like Jordan Montgomery quite a bit more. Gonsolin, obviously, you're spending even more now. So value-wise, Heaney probably above Gonsolin just because of the price difference. Savali at 77, Whitlock at 69. There are options. It's not like we've got a lack of options. This is a pretty broad slate in terms of the middle of the board. All these guys, Gausman aside, all these guys are like, mid-level type options. Sandy's a former ace hiding down here at 82.75 because he doesn't project well, but Sandy's definitely in that mix too. Like, if you're interested in Heaney at 72, you got to be interested in Sandy, even though he's going against the Braves at 75. So a lot of mix and match minor type shares of a lot of these guys, I think is viable here. But that super extreme discount, you're looking here, you're looking here, and you're looking here, and good luck to you. That's about it, gang. 12:40. We got to get some lineups built. We got to punch out. I appreciate everybody hanging out. Larry says Hill has to be the probable SP2 with Strider. I see that's why he's going to get so popular and so chalky. It'd be like 25-30% on DK, and that's just going to lead me at a better price to probably land on Tyon if I was building over there. I would just think that Tyon's going to be way lower owned for 1,000 less. So I think that's the angle I would take. Hill's probably the better of those two pitchers, but they're pitching fairly similarly. Tyon's in the better environmental matchup, the better team-based matchup. So I don't know. Seen 25 at one site and 10 at another. Yeah, that's a play that's going to be like all over the place, I think, projections-wise. I don't know that anybody necessarily knows where that one's going to land. All right, guys. Let me get out of here. I got to get some lineups built. I'm going to hit the old end broadcast button, hit the thumbs up, jump in the Discord, hit the subscribe, etc., etc., etc. I really appreciate you guys. Good luck out there today.